Hello, welcome back to my Art of Holding Space and my own exploration and growth of learning about it. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I am a coach, mentor, and educator and writer. So I just want to learn it. And for those of you who don't know, this book is by the wonderful Heather Plett, and I got this book from Canada Direct, and I'm sharing it with you. So I'm going to do one chapter, I'm going to read every fortnight, and then I'm going to reflect on it on my videos and on social media. So I am on chapter 3, so this is part 2, and I'm going to call it, because it's obviously fortnightly, so part 2, and this is about chapter 3. I've already covered chapter 1 and 2 if you want to look at the previous video. Okay, so chapter 3 was all about the kind of what she actually called the core elements of holding space. And she was talking here about a bowl. I don't know if you can see my rough drawing there, and you'll see that she's got a bowl on the front, and obviously I've got a bowl on my publicity with this. What she's more or less saying is that we hold space for the person that is in the bowl, so it's becoming and being the bowl. We become the bowl. And today I'm going to cover what she did in chapter 3, which is about what I offer, and that's the first closest bit to the client, and then what guides me, and then what supports the client. Okay, so she covered 10 kind of core elements of it, all of them which just is so amazing. I'm going to share with you now. I'm only going to share a little sentence because obviously she wrote a bit more. So one of the most important things she said is about witness. So you are showing up without the answers. That's a really key part of holding space. You want to make it so that the person that you are holding space for feels like they've been seen and they've been heard, and that's really powerful. Number 2 is about containment, and in the book she talks about this as, wait for this, I'm going to read it direct from my notes, a sense of tethering to home, and making sure that they know it's not a trap. And you know, she talked in there about how when somebody's really emotional and heartbroken, or whatever it is they're disclosing, and that she would sometimes say, is it okay if I give you this blanket, and put it around their shoulders or over their knees to try and give them that feeling of containment, that you know, it's not bigger than them and it's not bigger than you. And I think that's just beautiful. The number 3 was about compassion. She said that part of that offer that you're making is about giving compassion and empathy, not sympathy. And she was quite clear about that. Empathy being you're standing next to them, you know, looking out with the same shoes, in other words. So then selective non-judgment was number 4, and this is about avoiding shaming people with your own judgments. And so the offer must be that you allow people to make their own choices. And what was really powerful here as an example was that she said that, quite simply, she was working with some prison inmates, and they were talking as part of their disclosure to her about when they were released, getting into online criminality. And she said it was really important that she did make a judgment about that she didn't show any judgment about that, or any criticism or any shaming. And she said after various sessions they came to their own conclusions that was not the way forward. But it was a really good example of that element. Number 5 is selective guidance, and this is where she talks about, and again, a really good sentence, a thread that helps someone find their way back out. And this is really important, because this is acknowledging where people are at, but giving them, now and again, you might have to do that wise bit of guidance about, you know, you can recover from this. There is help out there for you. you know, these kind of statements that give them that sense that you are not, you know, not taking over and giving guidance and not listening to them, but, you know, it's selective guidance. Number 6 was about autonomy, and she was talking there about the difference between, for example, empowering someone and overwhelming. So, you know, in a sense, being aware of their autonomy on that. You know, she gave the example there of working with a teenage girl, and that you have to let them be overwhelmed a little bit to manage and become resilient and learn and cope. And that was really powerful for me, because I just think, yeah, actually, you know, it's something that I might do. You want to kind of sort them out, don't you? Whereas what she's saying is don't. Sometimes it's about that autonomy. Number 7, she was talking about in the chapter, was space for complexity. And this is where she is saying we need to abandon that urge to simplify. Holding space is not, is about the whole person, and not just the easy stuff. You know, how important is that? Number 8 is flexibility. Here she was really interesting, talking about grief as an example. And she said that sometimes, you know, someone will become very distressed about, or talking about really being troubled by grief and by loss, and they're laughing and joking about it. And you know, instead of what you would think was what they should be doing, which is crying about it if they're that upset. And she was saying we need to think about things more as a release valve. People react in a certain way for a release. That was an area that's triggered me a little bit. I'm really interested to learn more about this. I certainly know I've made judgment about people at funerals who have laughed and joked, and I've been offended by that. You know, it's kind of triggered that. One thing I did write down, which I thought was lovely, and I put it in a heart. There's a quote in the book, and it says, "We're here for a reason. I believe a bit of the reason is to throw little torches out to lead people through the dark." I thought that was just lovely, lovely. Number 9 is about connection, and what she's saying, that everybody in that you're holding space for is likely to be in a liminal space, where they might have got this story before and they haven't yet found the story that's going to be, and they feel very disconnected. And what's really important in holding space is helping them to feel connected. And another great paragraph she wrote, which I wrote down: holding space and connection in holding space is like dropping an anchor into a solid seabed when the storm is tossing the ship around on the waves. So helping them anchor. Beautiful. The last, number 10, is allyship. So it is choosing to walk alongside in a way to witness them as a whole. What she's talking about here is something I've been talking about for a long time under trauma-informed working when I was running the Women's Centre. One of the really crucial things that we must learn to do is not see ourselves as professionals and them clients, or that we're above them in any way and they're below. And part of this is that we help them to feel that we're walking alongside them, and that we're not doing those other things like judging, etc., etc. So it's about that feeling. She ends the chapter by saying all of these can have a shadow side. All of those 10 kind of key things for holding space. So, for example, containment, in the other extreme, in the shadow side, can be entrapment. That flexibility can be seen as wish-washy. That guidance can be seen as bossy. So it's really being aware of that. And she said part of the skill of holding space is checking in constantly with yourself. So that was chapter 3. My reflections on that is that I think there's probably 2 or 3 things there that I regularly would normally jump in with. I'm being honest and reflecting. So for example, my history is information, advice, guidance. So jumping into the coaching world anyway, this was a challenge for me, and in holding space, this is even more a challenge. So I hope over the next year to really show examples where I haven't done that and that I've held space more effectively. The other area that I would say, going back to the notes, the other area for me is about the space for complexity, I guess. There's something around that, isn't there, that you kind of expect people to express one feeling, and there might be 5 that they come with this agenda, and actually the agenda is that, and they are much more complex as beings, and that's the same for me. So part of my development and reason for doing this is about my own personal exploration and growth, and my own personal reflection on how I hold space for me. And I certainly don't allow for my complexities. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I hope that's really good and you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in a few weeks' time. Take care.